Hey, what is happening, guys? Rules for Rebels here. You know what it is. Side Hustle Tuesdays, episode 31. And today's story is going to illustrate a couple points. First off, something I notice is that oftentimes when people start getting into some type of new business or rolling out a new project, people often get deterred if they aren't the first person doing it. When in reality, having some competition is good. It means the concept is proven. If you're the first person doing something, there's a chance that nobody else is doing it, because there's no demand for whatever said thing is. Furthermore, if you're the first person, you typically have to educate the entire marketplace, which can be a complicated and expensive thing to do. If you watch Shark Tank, you'll often hear Mark Cuban talk about that as a negative, such as, I don't have time and it's going to be too expensive to explain this new way of doing, XYZ activity or XYZ product to the entire marketplace, which is used to doing it another way. And I thought that was kind of interesting. That's something that Mark Cuban brings up a lot with new concepts is, well, new concepts are great. Okay, now we're responsible for educating the entire populace about this new thing. And I'm going to go a little bit off script for a second. This is kind of interesting. My business partner and I were talking about this very thing today in relation to like Amazon products and things like that. So we have one particular supplier in China who my partner's got a good relationship with. And he asked her, when there's a hot product out that not a lot of people are onto, let us know about it. And so she recently approached us with two products. I'm not going to say what they are, but two really, really kind of interesting, kind of cool, like gadget type products. And me and my partner we went to go do some research on eBay or Amazon, and there's not a whole lot of information out there about these products because everybody's kind of sleeping on them. Nobody really knows about them yet. Now, the benefit of this is that we're able to order really small MOQs, or really small minimum order quantities. So we're able to order as little as like 10 pieces of inventory, which is really good. It's a great way to test out a potential product, right? However, once these products get popular, the suppliers, the manufacturers, they're not going to want to deal with us ordering 10 pieces because they have plenty of established suppliers who are ordering 100 pieces or 200 pieces or 1,000 pieces at a time. So this could be a great time for us to get into these new products. And we kind of, caught ourselves being like, there's no eBay sales, there's no Amazon sales, there's no track record. Well, of course there's no track record because we're going to be kind of the pioneers for these products. So it's kind of one of those things where if you have the balls to kind of go out on a limb and be the first person to do something, if it works out, you're going to reap all the benefits. If it doesn't work out, in this case, we're able to, order 10 units at a time. I think that's going to be about $300 plus shipping, $350. Like, that's a pretty small amount of money in the grand scheme of things to test something. So, I don't know. I'm going to get back to the story, but I just wanted to go a little bit off script there because I thought that was kind of an interesting. I had kind of come up with today's story earlier this morning before heading off to the office, and then me and my partner today were kind of talking about these new products that we're thinking about getting into, and it kind of brought up this point about being the first person to get into something. Anyhow, so sometimes not being the first person in a space isn't a death blow. Uber wasn't the first ride-sharing company. Facebook wasn't the first social media company. But if you can do something better, do something different, or appeal to a specific niche or a specific tribe, you can still be successful. And I think today's story also gives us a bit of a lesson in niching down. Today we're talking about personal finance. Personal finance is something that a lot of us struggle with. I know I struggled with it a lot in my early 20s. Many of us don't understand it, and it's easy to feel like it's something that everybody else gets and that you don't. And this can cause people to ignore it and feel overwhelmed, which really does nothing but dig them a deeper hole. So today's story is going to be about a woman who starts a business surrounding personal finance. But how could she succeed, right? We already have Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman. Who needs another personal finance guru? Is there room for another? Today's story is about Hadassa Damian. By day, she works as a tech manager for a small nonprofit. She describes herself as a queer punk artist, and she wound up starting a business to help those who she felt were traditionally ignored by the whole personal finance community. So Hadassa's classes, which she's running classes on personal finance, focus on a specific niche. She relates to them, and they relate to her. She has an anti-capitalist message and says that she relates to weirdos, women, and outsiders who want stable lives. So Hadassa says she's a queer punk artist with no family resources, so she struggled earlier in life. But at some point, she kind of figured out personal finance for herself, and she wants to share that knowledge with other people. At one point, she had a credit score of under 500. She's currently grown it to over 800. And on a total weird side note, there's actually a club for people with over 800 credit scores, just in case you didn't know. She also managed to qualify for a mortgage, even though she had earlier defaulted on student loans. Hadassa, as many people are, was active on Facebook, and one day while talking about her own experiences with personal finance, she kind of jokingly mentioned that she should start a class or teach a class. All her friends and followers and everything loved the idea, and that's how it all got started. She started a course called Fearless Money Management, where she would discuss things like budgeting, cash flow, emergency funds, taxes, cash management for businesses, etc. So what makes Hadassa different than Dave Ramsey? Quite honestly, he's probably a bit more of an expert in this area than her. That said, I doubt Dave Ramsey would agree with her anti-capitalist message, and I'm not sure how her gay and queer audience would relate to his strongly religious message. This is entirely why each of them are successful, though. Dave Ramsey includes a lot of religion and a lot of scripture in his radio show and his teachings, and he's also closely tied with a lot of religious communities, having most of his seminars and speeches at churches. That's kind of the tribe or the niche that he built his business on, in the same way that Hadassa is building a business around a community she relates to and understands, and one that relates to her. The biggest thing Hadassa emphasizes in her class is overcoming mental hurdles, and she also has a social justice framework to it. Her first class ever was kind of a beta test. She held it in her nonprofit office, which was available and empty during the evenings. Her first class had 6 students. Over the next few classes, the class size grew, and she decided to take the course online so that she would be able to reach more people. The online class was actually quite easy to set up. She already had a lot of blog posts and teaching materials, and she had recorded her first in-person class so she could use clips from that in the online course. She found the hardest and most challenging part was breaking the course into modules or sections and keeping things organized. For her online classes, she built a class and a group surrounding it on the WordPress platform and used a plugin called Lifter MLS to structure it. On a total side note, you'll notice that many of the side hustlers we talk about in these stories use WordPress as their platform or their choice, as it's fairly beginner friendly, offers a lot of flexibility, and can be fairly cheap if you don't go overboard with plugins. Hadassa students tend to come from the LGBTQ, say that 3 times fast, population. She charges a sliding pay scale depending upon people's incomes, and also reserves a few free spots in each class, which kind of goes along with her anti-capitalist message and makes her feel good about what she's doing. She finds her work empowering, and she enjoys bringing stability and a bit of personal finance education to a community who maybe wouldn't normally be that interested in it or feel that welcomed by the scene, but who, those people as well as everybody else, need some personal finance education to live stable lives. Hadassa has also started a paid group and offers consulting, so this business also falls into kind of the same type of selling digital information course/consulting format that a lot of the businesses we talk about in Side Hustle Tuesdays talks about. In some ways, it's very similar to the guy who we talked about a couple weeks ago who helped expats wanting to move to a new country and kind of answered their questions. Same type of business as that. Very similar business model. However, opposed to travel being the topic, in Hadassa's example, personal finance is a topic, but overall the business model remains very similar. So again, just to recap, we already have Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman. Many people may think that, do we really need another personal finance guru? But again, Hadassa was able to tailor her message to an audience she understands and relates to, and one that understands and relates to her, and it makes the topic of personal finance more relatable coming from her. You too could do something very similar to what Hadassa has done. What's another topic area or something that has a lot of gatekeepers and where it may be hard to relate to? Some examples that come to mind may be things like finance, preparing taxes, entrepreneurship, getting an MBA, law school, med school, engineering school, etc. You guys may have heard of Pat Flynn. He's a big passive income guy and a big part of the entrepreneur community. He's got a show called Passive Income Something with Pat Flynn. And he actually got his start when he was going through engineering school. Apparently in engineering, there's a big test you have to pass at the end of school, probably somewhat similar to the bar exam for law school. Many people struggle with studying for the test as well as the test itself. So what Pat did, he wound up creating some courses to help people pass the architecture test, and did it in a very similar business model to what Hadassa is doing in terms of like study guides, paid membership groups, personal coaching, etc. And that's actually how Pat got his start in passive income generation and basically entrepreneurship, period. And that's actually why he's now today an entrepreneur instead of an architect. Anyhow, guys, hopefully this gives you some things to think about. If you can find a topic that is confusing or intimidating to some people and find a way to demystify or simplify it, there's probably money in that. Anyhow, guys, that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed the story. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Side Hustle Tuesdays. Hope you were both inspired and motivated. And until next time, this is Rules for Rebels, signing off.